All right, next is Tasana Burkett and Shane Llewellyn. Looks like Miss Burkett's. All right, and there's Mr. Llewellyn. I didn't see anything else filed. We're gonna just check the status of this case. Mr. Lawrence, maybe you should start us.
Your Honor, when we last met in court, Mr. Llewellyn had proposed a third party to do the supervised visitation, and Ms. Burkett was to contact her and decide whether or not she would be in agreement to allow that. However, a major issue has arisen. In my last report, I made mention of a car crash that Tasana Burkett was involved in. And Mr. Llewellyn called me about a week ago to let me know that she is being prosecuted for that car crash. So I went on Odyssey to review the documents there. And what happened was on March the 21st of 2021, she was involved in a car crash where she crossed over the center line and hit another car head on, where there were two individuals in that particular car that got severely injured. The state patrol did an investigation. They found that her breathalyzer reading was 0.10. So she was legally drunk. The other issue was that she had 3 times the legal limit for marijuana in her system at the time of the crash. She is undergoing a trial on the matter on June the 27th of this year, which is essentially 2 months away. So we're in a situation where Shane has always been the, quote, identified patient, unquote, because of his mental health issues and whether or not he is stable. He has since gotten on appropriate medication, and he is holding down a job, and I've not heard of any incidents for almost a year now, and he seems to be doing very well and trying to get reintegrated into his son Abel's life. Tasana now, who has been the one who has been unsure about Shane's progress and whether it'll hold, is now facing potential jail or even possibly prison for this particular act that she did. And it was just a miracle that she didn't have Abel in the car with her. He could have been killed. And so it appears that we have 2 months to try to potentially see how visits between Shane and Abel can be increased and given more time, potentially even overnight visits, because there's going to come a time where Ms. Burkett may not be available for several months. And so I'm very concerned that we have to fast track this, and then Ms. Burkett's objections to supervisors is going to be a real problem here. The court, she was living with her boyfriend in Hillsboro, Oregon, and I don't know anything really about this guy. In the past, she has lived with her parents in Woodland, and her parents were always an option to take care of Abel. But if she goes to jail or prison, I don't know what the plan ultimately is, and Shane is asking for more time. So it appears to me that we need to get moving on trying to reintegrate these two together and then see what happens the end of June.
Let me hear from Ms. Burkett first, and then Mr. Llewellyn, I'll hear from you.
Um, I first of all would just like to say that I have been completely sober from marijuana and alcohol for over 2 years now. My monumental mistake of my life, and I've completed my treatment plan. I go to counseling once a month. I'm doing absolutely everything that I can to stay on the right track. That being said, we have not moved to Hillsborough. We are staying here with my parents. Abel's lived here most of his entire life. My parents love him so much. And they're more than willing to be involved as much or as little as we need these difficult times in our family. My mom and him have a wonderful relationship. My parents are both retired, so they're able to be available for him any time of the day, drop-offs, pickups, anything that goes on. I again would just like to say
Your
precautions.
trial is set in June, is that right?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
I do also think that I do think that removing Abel from my parents' home permanently or all the time would be detrimental to him, seeing as how this is his home. I mean, this is his bedroom. He has all of his things here. He loves my parents, and he hasn't really known another home. So
Okay. Mr. Llewellyn, how would you like to respond? I think you've frozen right now.
Hello.
There we go. I think. Go ahead.
So this has definitely been a curveball. Being Abel's father, I would like to have him as much as possible, and I would still like him to see Tasana's parents, his grandma and grandpa. I do not know a place that would work best for visitation, like staying over the night. But I would, as I say, having him in my life is the most important thing to me, and I've been doing extremely well. I've been on great medication. I'm working full time. I'm the happiest, the best I've been in my life in many years, and I'm no longer like lethargic and zombie-like from medication. I have full spark of life, and I'm doing extremely well. And again, I don't know where the visitation could go aside from Marie's house, who we had asked for. And again, major curveball. I don't know where to go with this, Your Honor.
Ms. Burkett, you have an objection to the proposed guardian. I think it was his landlord at one time and maybe somebody else, or I don't know what situation.
I spoke with Marie Woodage. She seems like a lovely person. She's very, very kind. I don't have any objection to that. I do have just the concern that I would hope that she be unbiased, that she has known Shane his entire life, and I would hope that she would be forthcoming with the information to me as well. So,
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I hear Keith Lawrence said at the end of June, we'd see how the visitation was going. I'm wondering if at the end of June that we could potentially, I would be moving into an apartment of my own, and I know that it's still the end of next month, so we've got roughly 2 months, but I'm wondering if everything goes well by the end of June, if I'm able to get my visitation with Abel at my own apartment unsupervised. I know that's a lot to ask on test's end, but I am doing extremely well. I have many people that can attest to that, and it'd be a request of mine. Like I say, I'd still let him see his grandma and grandpa whenever he wanted to. And I don't know how that pick up and drop off would work, but we could certainly work something out if you're willing to entertain that.
Have you been seeing Abel so far?
I've been seeing him every other weekend at Reconnecting Families, and I see him 2 hours every other weekend, paying $80 per visit. I was supposed to get 8 hours with him, but I did not have $320 a month to pay extra, so they cut my time in half.
And if we go with Ms. Woodage, do you know what her availability is?
Honestly, not entirely sure. I was under the impression that weekends she's available, and I was going to ask that I get Saturdays, as well as, well, every Saturday as well as Wednesdays from roughly 5:30 to 8:30. And I was thinking Saturdays like 10 to 4. In the past, I was seeing Abel every weekend for 6 hours, and then every Wednesday for 3 hours, totaling 30 hours. And now I've been at 4 hours at Reconnecting Families, doing extremely well. There's not, as far as I understand, anything negative to say about me. And the guardian, and the social workers know it's Beth Fellows, whomever else. But yeah, my request to be to, at the end of the month, potentially be able to have Abel at my own place.
All right, Mr. Lawrence, any additional you want to add?
No, Your Honor. I understand that the court may have some concerns about the stability of both of the parents. Shane has, I think, jumped through all of the hoops over the past year and a half that we have put in front of him. Tasana, this kind of comes out of the blue, and I'm very concerned about it, but we won't know for sure where we're at until the end of June, whether she's got a plea deal or is convicted or acquitted. I think Shane's proposal is reasonable, that if we could have Ms. Woodage provide supervised visits and increase some of the time to see how those go, so that when we get to June, we can have a clear picture as to whether overnight visits are in the offing or not. And I'm in essence kind of pleased to hear that Tasana did not move to Hillsborough, that she's still with her parents, because that has been the home for Abel for all of his life so far. And so there's at least some stability there. But I would encourage the court to allow Ms. Woodage to provide the supervision, increase some of the time, and then we can revisit this maybe mid-June before the trial and see where we are.
Your Honor.
Okay, just briefly, then I need to make some decisions. Go ahead.
Right. So after the visitation at Marie's, and when we come back to revisit it, as I had requested about potentially getting Abel for overnight stays at my own apartment unsupervised, if that were to be entertained, I would say, or ask, I'm sorry, if I could have Abel 50% of the time, and then his grandma and grandpa, Tessa's parents, could have him the other 50% of the time. I think that would be a fair split, because I have lost out on, unfortunately, a lot of my son's life, and I would like to regain those grounds, and I am in the stable position to do so.
Okay. We're gonna have to make some adjustments here. I think Mr. Lawrence's concern that we need to ramp up the visitation with the father, because if the mother is not available, there's going to be more weight on the father. And Mr. Llewellyn needs to be prepared for that. So I'm going to allow, and this is if First of all, I'm gonna allow Ms. Woodage to be the supervisor. If she's available, I would like visits every Saturday from 10 to 6. And every Wednesday from 5:30 to 8:30.
Connor, can I say something about that?
Go ahead.
Usually Abel is in bed by 7:30 on Wednesdays just because it's a school night, but I do understand if we need to do that later.
To respect that, could I move that to 7:30 rather than 8:30?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so we'll have him returned at 7:30,
Thank you, Your Honor.
so he's not up too late. All right, second, I had approved a move to Hillsborough previously. I think in light of what's going on, I'm gonna have to suspend that approval. I don't think it makes sense for Abel to be moved at the end of kindergarten and then his mom not be available for him if that's what happens. So we need to suspend that until we know what's going on with the criminal proceeding. And in terms of the request for unsupervised visits, I'm going to need to take that up in June. I want to see how these supervised visits go first. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I'm going to do this kind of in two steps. The first time I want us to come back will be June 7th at 9 o'clock. And then we'll see what's going on with the criminal case at that time. And
Your
likely
Honor, could you
another hearing after that's we think that's going to be
please
resolved.
repeat that, Your Honor? I was getting a phone call and it muted you.
Sure. The next time back will be June 7th
Mhm.
at 9 a.m. And then I'll probably set another hearing, but I want to check in on the criminal matter and determine when that will be.
Okay, so just the June 7th, and then on June 7th, we'll plan the next.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
When will the next visit be exactly? Is it going to be
Well,
this?
I would like it this weekend if Ms. Woodage can do it. So that would be May 6th.
Okay.
And then the next time, we won't do it tonight. I think that's too short notice. And then the Wednesdays will start on May 10th. Okay.
Okay.
So this weekend, if Marie is available, we can start the visitation there.
Yes.
Okay.
From 10 to 6, if that works. Okay.
Your Honor,
If she's not available, then I would hope the parties can work together to find another 8-hour slot for the visitation. Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
and you said starting the Wednesdays when, Your Honor?
May 10th. Mr.
Okay.
Lawrence, did you
Your
have?
Honor, yes, I have an issue, Your Honor. I have completely used up all of the time that I have been previously allotted on this matter. It sounds like I'm going to be needed for a little bit more yet. May I be approved for, let's say, another 5 hours?
You may be approved for that.
Thank you.
If you want to submit an order, I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
All right.
Your Honor,
Yes.
as I am unable to speak with Tess because of the restraining order, I am wondering, I was going to ask for at the Reconnecting Families if my mother would be able to go to Abel's birthday, because his birthday is on Sunday. If I see him Saturday, that's when I would be celebrating. And Tessana is allowing Abel to stay the night at my mother's, which is about 15 minutes away from Marie's house, and it would save Tess the trip to go pick Abel up and take him down if my mom could take him to Marie's and at least join the first part of the visit while we celebrate his birthday.
Ms. Burkett, any thought on that?
personally, I do kind of like to pick him up after his sleepovers with Nana, just to check in with him and, see how everything went. And then we usually go to the visit after that. He usually spends a night with Nana every 2 weeks or so right before his visit. Maybe she could follow us down and join there.
Okay, I'm not gonna do the direct transfer. I'll have Abel go back to Ms. Burkett to be with her for a little bit. Okay,
That sounds perfect, Your Honor.
all right. Thank you both, and we'll see you back here on the 7th, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Cassandra Burkett and Shane Llewellyn. Now, Mr. Lawrence is on.
Oh, Your Honor.
Hello, Your Honor.
Let me start with Mr. Llewellyn. And I'm not sure I see you here, but oh, there you are. Great. So last time I allowed supervised visits with Ms. Woodage, and how have those visits been going?
The visits have been going very well, but they're very sporadic. Marie has a schedule of her own and she does bartending on the weekends and has classes that she takes. I was allotted 40 hours and I'm getting around 20, I would guess. Wednesdays, I've missed a few and I've missed a couple of Saturdays, as well as only had half Saturdays, the 4 out of the 8 hours that I was supposed to get. And I talked with Keith, I had sent him an email, but I never heard anything back. My grandpa is unwilling to do 40 hours and Marie is unable to do 40 hours. So my request would be that I'm able to get unsupervised visitation, where I have jumped through all the hoops that I'm supposed to have. And I think that I've done well beyond anything necessary that would be done for me to be able to see Abel unsupervised.
All right, thank you. Ms. Burkett, how do you think things are going?
I think they are going well. Abel definitely looks forward to seeing his father. Abel has told me a few different times that he does miss being able to do like our trips on the weekend. Before this, we did have kind of a busy weekend schedule, including like visiting family out of town, beach trips. He loves to go camping, that kind of thing. And so I was trying to figure out a solution to all of it. And I was considering, and I wanted to run this by Shane as well, perhaps doing like a Saturday, Sunday visit and alternating weekends so that Abel and I could still do our camping trips that I had been promising him all year. And he could still, we could alternate Wednesdays as well. So he could still see him every week. It just would alternate the Wednesday and the Saturday, Sunday, if that makes sense. But other than that, I think they're going well. Abel definitely enjoys seeing his father, and I haven't heard anything bad about it. There is one concern that I have. It's not necessarily about the visits, but since Marie has had my phone number, I've been receiving text messages from Shane, which there is a protection order in place. In the first couple messages, I was like, I'll just let it slide. Hopefully he'll get the hint. And then the last message was like a picture message of a handwritten like love letter from him, just saying how he wants to be back together and it's what's best for Abel, and that he wants to have another baby with me. And it did kind of concern me. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. I know Marie's probably where he got that phone number from, but.
Sure. Llewellyn, do you want to address that?
The note that was written was from like 4 years ago, and she had read that one time before. It was recently after we had divorced.
Did you send it recently?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
And do you understand that violates a protection order?
I do, Your Honor.
if that continues, that's going to seriously impact your ability to see your son.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. The court needs to know that you can follow the rules that have been set out between you and Ms. Llewellyn. Okay.
Mr. Burkett.
All right. Let me talk to Mr. Lawrence, and then I've got a couple more questions, but Mr. Lawrence?
Your Honor, I have had conversations with Mr. Llewellyn in the recent past. He has been asking about changing the visit supervisor from Miss Woodage to his grandfather. And I'd indicated to him that I have no authority to do that. That is something he's going to have to bring before the court and address it here, that I don't have that ability. The other issue I wanted to bring up, Your Honor, is I spoke to Ms. Burkett's mother, Sandy Burkett, and originally Tess was going to move to Hillsborough, and she apparently has not done that, and has no intention of moving to Hillsborough. She's still residing in her parents' home. So should she go to jail, Ms. Burkett's parents are willing to provide the majority of the care for Abel. And so therefore, the urgency that we were facing seems to be relieved at this point.
So, Ms. Burkett, you indicated you'd like visits to go from Saturday to Sunday, or Saturday and then on Sunday also?
I would prefer Saturday and then on Sunday also, but
Okay, not overnight then, is that right?
yeah.
What's your position on unsupervised visits at this time?
It still is a concern for me, of course, just with the past, it's hard for me to get over. My concern is I'm not I'm sure maybe Keith has this information. I don't have it, but I haven't gotten an update on if he is taking his medications, or if he's not smoking marijuana currently. I haven't heard an update on that recently either. And I hope that the medication is still working well for him, but.
And last question is, he wants to use his grandfather as a supervisor. Is that right? Your grandfather or your father?
I am unable to use my grandfather. He's not willing to do 40 hours, and Marie is unable to do 40 hours. That's why I'm asking for unsupervised.
Why are you saying 40 hours? These visits are Saturday 10 to 6 and then on Wednesdays.
Yes, every Saturday is 10 to 6 and every Wednesday is 5:30 to 7:30. It's
So
40 hours.
40 hours a month is what you're talking about?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And
Ms. Woodage isn't available all of those times?
a lot of those times she's not. And even the times that I think she might be, she halfway through the week, she says, oh, I got a bartending gig, because she works weddings and stuff over the weekend. So they're just hit and miss all over the place. She never really knows. I was supposed to have a visit with him today, and I'm unable to have that visit as well.
Can I say something quickly?
Yes, please.
Marie had asked me a couple different times if it would be okay if Shane's mother supervised at least partial of the visit when Marie couldn't. And I am okay with Michelle supervising. I trust her fully, if that's an option.
Mr. Llewellyn, any response to that?
So my mom really doesn't want to hold the visits at her home anymore. And not only that, but my stepfather will be back from his flying job that he's been at for like 6 months now. And he, from like a year and a half, 2 years ago, he has got a restraining order on me, so I can't even do the visits at my house. And I would also like to add that I'm currently still taking my urinalysis I just recently took one. I can get that information over, but since I've been doing so well, my med prescriber said that we're gonna do them every 3 months, but if you guys would like to go back to every month or even sooner, I'm more than happy to do so.
All right,
Your Honor, may I add something else?
go ahead.
So I would think it'd be beneficial if I could get from like Friday night to Sunday night with Abel. That way I would have still quite a bit of time with him. And then he would have, that'd be every other weekend. That way he would have a free weekend with his mom as well. And Abel has talked to me as well about, oh, can we go? He had just recently went to Great Wolf Lodge and he asked me, he's like, can we go to Great Wolf Lodge? And I told him, I was like, well, buddy, it depends on what happens, but we might be able to do that. And I think if I could get every Wednesday and then every other weekend from sometime after like 5 o'clock on Friday to a specified time on Sunday, that I think that would work out well. And me being able to take him places like we could go to on a beach trip over the weekend as well. And I could take him to go get food or go to Walmart or go to the beach or Merwin, just really anything. It'd be opened up my options a lot more. Our options.
All right. So I want you to get to that place. I think that's exactly the kind of relationship I want you to have with your son. What I'm looking at today is you've violated a protection order. And that raises a concern for me. And it raises a concern where I'm not sure I'm ready to take that step. So I don't know. Well, I am going to make a change to allow every other weekend with Ms. Burkett. So the change will be the visitation will be Saturday 10 to 6, and the same weekend will be Sunday 10 to 6. And that will be every other weekend. And then I guess on the off weeks is what you're suggesting. So the Wednesdays will also go to alternating Wednesdays going forward. Well, you would see, let's start with you seeing Abel this weekend.
And are these unsupervised visits, Your Honor?
No, they're going to stay supervised.
Yes.
Again, the concern is violating the protection order. They're really, all I'm changing is the times.
May I say one thing, Your Honor?
You may.
I do fully understand that I violated that, but we have been separated for close to 5 years now, and I had never sent anything. And honestly, after that picture message, I had no intention of sending another. And I know that's just hearsay, but that is a hand on a Bible truth.
I understand. There was a violation. Okay. So you'll see Abel this Saturday, the 10th, and Sunday, the 11th, if you're able to coordinate that. It needs to be supervised. And then Ms. Burkett, just so I understand, would the Wednesday be the 14th or be the 21st if we go every other?
21st.
All right. So then it would be Wednesday, the 21st, and then he would have also the next weekend, the 24th and the 25th.
Yes.
So I just want to set that up so we know what the every other days are going to be.
Okay.
Your Honor.
And they're going to stay supervised. I'm going to set a review hearing. I'd like to see how that goes for a while, and then I would like to consider unsupervised visits, but I can't do that today. Go ahead, Mr. Llewellyn.
Would it still be fine for me to get the 5:30 to 7:30 every Wednesday? Because that's in the middle of the week.
I'm giving that time frame as long as that works with everybody. Nobody's mentioned anything about it, so
Well,
I'm
I thought you
assuming
had
that is
said
working
every other Wednesday.
every other Wednesday.
Could we do every,
Starting
Your Honor?
the 21st now. Of
Could
June.
we do every Wednesday and then every other weekend, Saturday 10 to 6, and then Sunday 10 to 6?
Yes,
So every Wednesday, Your Honor?
not every Wednesday, every other Wednesday.
Okay.
Now, okay. And then
And what are the times for Wednesday?
5:30 to 7:30.
My other concern is I still am unable to get my visitation with Marie all the time, so that's still going to cause a hiccup in everything, and that's why I think it would be nice to be able to have unsupervised visits, but I fully understand your standpoint.
Thank you. And again, I want to get there. That is where everybody should be at some point in the future, and I do want to get there. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. If you've had some recent drug tests, or I think you mentioned that you may have been having that. If you want to file those results with the clerk's office so that Mr. Lawrence and I can see those, and also Ms. Burkett, then that would be helpful. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. I just took one like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, so I can get that over.
Why don't you file that? Okay. That will confirm both that you're on your medication and that there's nothing illicit going on. So, okay.
Would you like me to switch back to monthly? I'm happy to do so, but the med prescriber thought that we could do every 3 months because everything's going extremely well.
I will let your prescriber make that decision. I'm not going to make any healthcare decisions for you. Okay. But it may make sense for you to file any testing results with the court for a bit. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Lawrence, anything further from you?
No, Your Honor, just when do you plan to have the review hearing?
Yeah, let's go a month out. And that would be July 12th again.
Your Honor, I'm still curious about how I'm gonna get the full 10 to 6 and 10 to 6 every other weekend if Marie is always having bartending gigs come up.
That may be a hindrance, and it's going to be subject to Ms. Woodidge's schedule. And so I'm sorry about that. But we did discuss a couple other alternative supervisors, but none of them seem to work out. So we're going to have to leave it with Ms. Woodidge right now.
If my mom is willing to do partial visits, not the full visits, but just the times that Marie is unavailable, would that be able to be an option?
If that works for you, apparently that works for Ms. Burkett. So I am okay with that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Any Ms. Burkett, any other questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll be back here on July 12th. Okay.
Thank you, Your
Thank you,
Honor.
Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Lawrence. I'm going to go ahead and call the Burkett and Llewellyn matter. This will be okay. So Ms. Burkett, every time you unmute, there is an echo. Are you streaming this on 2 different devices? Well, I muted you because of the echo, so you're going to have to figure out how to fix that. We can't hear from you with that occurring. Do you have 2 applications open? One where
No, I do not, Your Honor. I just have.
So every time I talk, there's an echo, which leads me to believe that you're also live streaming YouTube on either an application on your phone or another device. Do we have Mr. Llewellyn, Shane Llewellyn present?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm going to pull up your digital file while she works on that tech issue. Yeah.
Mr. Jackson is going to be in the waiting room.
He must be logged on to a different docket because he is not in the waiting room. I just see her and there's no one in the waiting room.
Is that better, Your Honor?
That is. Oh, no, still there. So, well, maybe it's gone now. Okay, we'll see how far we can get. All right, give me just a second to get back into your digital file. All right. So previously, I think you folks were in front of Commissioner Nelson back in June. And he did a bench order at that time modifying supervision. My understanding is we're here for a review on that because there were some concerns about the modification. But obviously I'm kind of stepping into this long-standing case here several years later. So maybe Mr. Lawrence, I'll first turn to you to kind of get me up to speed on where we're at.
Yes, Your Honor. This has been going on for several years. The primary issue was Shane suffers from bipolar disorder, and he was untreated initially, and he did some bizarre behaviors that not only scared Tasana, but scared Shane's family as well. He was running through the neighborhood in just his underwear, jumping up and down on his own car. He assaulted a couple of workers that came to inspect his foundation. And ultimately, Shane got his medication straightened out. And for about the last year, he has been pretty stable. One of Shane's issues was smoking marijuana, and that seems to be under control as well. We were before the court a few weeks ago, and the concern was whether or not Shane has been taking his medication as approved or as prescribed. He supplied me with a blood workup from May 19th of this year, indicating that he was current and doing well. Shane is working full time, has a place of his own now, and stabilized quite a bit. Tasana was involved in a car crash, I believe last summer, and she had been drinking and under the influence of marijuana at the time. And she was charged criminally over that. And my review of the Odyssey documents indicates that recently she accepted a plea agreement and is to be sentenced on August, I think, the 13th. And she is looking at a potential sentence of 12 to 16 months in prison. Mm. The question then became, what happens to Abel? Who is about, I think, 5 or 6 now, because Shane had not been stable for a long time. There was concern as to whether or not Shane could actually provide for him while Tasana was incarcerated. Tasana had asked about a year ago to move to Hillsboro, Oregon, to relocate with her boyfriend. And that apparently did not happen. And she is currently still living with her parents in Woodland. And I have spoken to her mother, Sandra Burkett, who indicates that they are more than willing to care for Abel throughout her incarceration. But we still could continue with visitation with Shane and potentially as he maintains his stable situation, we could consider maybe increasing some of that visitation with Abel. And so that's kind of where we're at this point. And I haven't spoken to Tasana since her plea agreement, so I don't know further than just what I read in Odyssey. And I haven't spoken to Shane in the last week or so either. And so I don't know his position yet either.
Okay. That does get me up to speed. I appreciate that. So maybe I'll check in with the parties. Well, first, I guess, Mr. Lawrence, let me ask you, so I'm trying to make sense of whether we have a parent. The last thing I see was in 2022, a motion to change the parenting plan, or a motion for adequate cause to change the parenting plan. An adequate cause was found, but then I'm not seeing whether there was ever a full hearing or trial on changing the parenting plan. Are we still kind of in that setting?
There was no trial, Your Honor.
Okay. So I think for my purposes, just procedurally, I see essentially we have an unaddressed modification to a parenting plan hanging out there. But if this is going to be a situation where one or both parents can't be full-time parents, my thought is that there might need to be an emergency minor guardianship case started if there are other adults that are going to be taking over that role.
We initially thought that if Tasana was in Hillsborough and went into jail, that there would be nobody available to care for Abel. However, she did not move to Hillsborough. She remains living with her parents, who she has lived with for a number of years, and Abel considers that his home. So if she were to go to prison, then Abel could continue staying with his grandparents, and Shane could continue with his visitation.
Okay. So, Ms. Burkett, let me turn to you. What is your, I guess, status? You've heard some of the testimony or statements from Mr. Lawrence about an upcoming potential sentence. Do you have any more information to give the court about that so we can kind of craft how to best take care of the child in the interim?
Yes. First, I just wanted to address, I believe Keith said the accident happened last summer. It was actually 2.5 years ago that it happened. And I have been 100% clean and sober ever since. I just had a hair follicle test and everything came back negative. And we are going forth with a plea deal with a parental sentencing act. I qualify for all of the things that were needed on that list for the parental sentencing, which would prevent me from going to prison. So that's what the defense is going forth towards at this moment.
So then would that be more like electronic home monitoring or something where you would still be at home?
Yes, it would be probation from home.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when does the sentencing take place?
August 16th.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Llewellyn, I'll hear from you. I mean, we're on essentially for review. My initial thought was we were reviewing the visitation that had been changed back in June, but it sounds more like we might be doing kind of some future planning for the child. What do you want the court to know about how things are going right now?
So I haven't seen Abel in about a month. It would be a month by the time I next see him. I was allotted 40 hours with him, but then we switched it to 36 because Tess wanted weekends with him. and I didn't get every Wednesday. Instead, I got every other Wednesday, so I lost the 4 hours. Last time I saw Abel was some Saturday, June 10th for 4 hours, and then Sunday, June 11th for 4 hours. I'm supposed to get 8 hours each day with those. And then the 24th of June and the 25th of June, I got 0 hours, as well as this last Wednesday, I got 0 hours. Saturday, the 8th, 0 hours I'm getting, or I guess that's today, sorry. Today I get 0 hours. No, I'm a little lost. I've lost a lot of time with him, like a lot of time. And it's like a month since I've last seen him. So it's Wednesday, June 21st was the last time seeing him. And 1 month time will be passed by the time I get to see him again, because I missed my last weekend. And since it's every other weekend, I'm missing this weekend too. So I'm proposing that I get to see Abel today and this Saturday, and that we reset the schedule, because it'll be a month without him or I seeing each other.
Yeah, so what's the reason?
Sorry.
Hold on one sec. What's the reason? You said you missed visitation last weekend. What was the reason for that?
The supervisor has been a difficult one, not her herself, but just her supervision. She does bartending gigs over the weekend, and she has her own life going on with all kinds of stuff. But this last weekend, her mom had passed away, so I missed my Wednesday, the Saturday, and the Sunday. And then, like I say, the weekend before, I only got half my time, and it's typically I get either half or none of my time. Like I was allotted 40, and I'm getting like 10 to 15, well, I guess 36 now, but I'm not getting nearly as much as I was told the court that I could have. I would like to see if we can go about getting the unsupervised visitation with everything that Tess has going on, whether it goes to where she ends up in prison or whatnot, or if she does the FOSA, which is what I was told by the court, Family Alternative Sentencing Act or something. If that would be the case, then I would be able to take Abel anywhere, do anything at our times, and get my full allotted time. And it just doesn't really seem to make any sense to me, because if whatever ends up happening, she has got a restraining order on me, and she's the one that's been doing the pickups and drop-offs. And with the restraining order, I can't really necessarily go pick him up or drop him off. Plus the fact that her parents really don't care for me. So they're not going to want to do the pickups or drop-offs, and they're not going to want me to go there to pick up or drop off either. So if I could just get my unsupervised visitation, like I've been doing extremely well. I'm actually nearing or at the 2-year mark, not 1 year of stability. I've jumped through all the hoops that they wanted me to. I went through reconnecting families. There was not a single bad note said about me. I take my regular urinalysis for showing that I've taken my medication and have no THC, and it's a like multi-panel. Like I was impressed with how many different drugs it goes through, and all of them come back negative except for my medication. And I've just been doing everything that I can in the best interest of Abel and wanting to see my son more, and it hasn't worked out that way as was told by the court.
So here's where the court stands. I do show back on October 31, 2022, you all were in front of Judge Basher, a Superior Court judge in this county, who did conduct a non-jury trial on visitation and did set the every other week schedule at that time. Absent a request for a new trial on that, I would not be inclined to change it. I do note you have somewhat of a modification here that adds in every other Wednesdays from 5:30 to 7:30. Today, what I'm going to do is keep that visitation as scheduled. I believe Judge Basher's findings are appropriate based on the fact that he was able to actually take evidence on this and set the appropriate visitation. Looks like Commissioner Nelson took into account some additional information to do a slight modification of that. So for now, the June 8, 2023 modification of visitation will stand. What I would like to do is set a review date just after August 16th. So the parties can come back and we will know for sure what Ms. Burkett's sentence is. I think that is going to be instrumental in determining whether we need to take any further steps for custodial parentage of the child, or if she is going to be essentially home and able to maintain that role. So let me get my calendar. August 16th is a Wednesday. So, and that's when we'd be doing. Do we have self-represented docket on any day other than Wednesdays? No, it's just Wednesdays. Okay. Oh, right. Okay. So let's set you all to Wednesday, August 23rd at 9 a.m. back on this docket. And that will be to review whether we need to address any parenting plan changes if Ms. Burkett is unable to be primary parent for an temporary, a 12 to 16 month period or whatever that may be, or whether she is able to remain at her home.
Your Honor.
Yes.
So do I just lose out like on an entire month of not seeing my son? And not only that, but during one of the last like 3 court dates ago, we had spoken, I don't remember which judge it was, I want to say Basher, but he was talking about getting unsupervised visits as well as overnight stays. And I know that changed the last like 2 ago, but that was something that was already talked about. And I feel like this is just kind of just getting beat around the bush kind of thing. And it's just been very hectic with the supervision. I mean, the supervisor for the visitation. So if we could try to speed that along, or if I could at least get to where I can see him without waiting an entire month, since I'm supposed to see him 36 hours a month, that just doesn't really seem fair to him or myself.
Yeah. What I can say at this point is I'm going to follow the visitation that is currently in place that was set by both Judge Basher and Commissioner Nelson. If you want a change to that, I would request that you file a motion to change that. So I think what's happened, and this is through no fault of your own, I know the parties are unrepresented, but essentially it looks to me like this case, there was a trial, visitation was decided. Typically that is the new parenting plan. But in your case, just review dates were set where a commissioner would review the case and decide whether to make modifications. But truly, if we're wanting to change a parenting plan, we would need to go through a new fact finding. There would need to be new evidence that this is in the best interest of the child. So I'm not inclined on this hearing without any further evidence in front of me to make changes to that visitation schedule. But if that is a motion that you want this court to decide, please bring it forward with the evidence you have to show that that change would be in the best interest of the child.
May I ask, Your Honor, if it were to be worked out with Tessana, could we not switch it like indefinitely, but like just to where I get my visitation with him, and then we could get back on track again with the one that's already proposed by the courts, even if it's just like partial time that I could see him and then we continue with the regular schedule, or if I could see him this Wednesday and weekend as well as next to make up for lost time, or something that would work best for both parties as well as April's interest.
I understand your request. I think my hand, all I can tell you is from the court's perspective, there's an order in place that needs to be followed. If the parties come to an agreement that is different than that, I'm not going to say one way or the other whether that's court approved or not. Certainly no one's going to be held in contempt over an arrangement like that. But as it stands now, all I have authority to do is to tell you that the order for as currently filed with the court is going to stay in effect.
Yes, Your Honor. May we voice that over here to see if the other party is okay with it? If we could work something out, even if we don't.
I've got many other cases I have to call. If the two of you want to work on that through a third party, I have no problem with that, but I think we've set your review date. So I'm going to end your case here today. The two of you will be free to log out. We'll see you back on August 23rd, primarily to discuss the Ms. Burkett's sentence. If you want the court to look at a motion with further evidence about visitation at that time, please go ahead and file that. Okay?
Okay, may I just ask, Your Honor, I don't mean to be pushy, but could you
Well, I
just
am-
ask,
I've got to move on to the next case, sir.
Like the
So I
3-second
can't give
thing, Your
legal
Honor.
advice.
no,
I'm-
it's not legal advice. I was just asking, would you be willing to ask Tess if that's something she would do? Just a yes or a no answer. So it can be stated here on the courts.
Ms. Burkett, did you hear what his question was? I think it's about making up visitation time that he's missed.
Yes, and I normally would, but we had made plans this weekend to be out of town, Abel and I. I tried to make things, plan things ahead for weekends that I know I'll have him,
All right.
so.
Okay. So that is the answer for Ms. Burkett. So the two of you are free to log out. We'll see you back on August 23rd. Mr. Lawrence, anything else you need from the court?
Oh, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you so much. Do I have Tessana Burkett and Shane Llewellyn with me?
I'm here, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I may intervene,
Please.
I had email contact with Tessana Burkett yesterday. She received 40 days in jail that started today as the result of her DUI car crash that occurred a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And so she's not going to be available today.
So thank you for that. Our initial reason for being on today was to review that potential sentence and how it may impact parenting. What is happening with child while she's serving this sentence, or do we know?
I do know, Your Honor. She was living with her parents in Woodland. And so Abel is with her parents at this point. And should she serve out the entire 40 days, her release date would be October the 2nd.
Okay. So Mr. Llewellyn, were you aware of this information, or is this new to you?
I'm aware. I was under the impression that it was 90 days, but apparently 40, that's even better. So
Okay,
Abel can have his mom back in his life sooner.
okay. Are we, the last thing we have on file is the visitation order of June 8, 2023. My inclination, as it does sound like child is in a safe place, is to just set this review matter out to a date when Ms. Burkett can be present. Or do Mr. Lawrence or Mr. Llewellyn have concerns about us needing to address the child's placement for these 40 days?
Your Honor, I would like to speak up. I have not seen Abel. I was allotted 36 hours with him, and I maybe see him 10 hours a month because of the supervisor. She has to take care of her mother-in-law, as well as she works bartending gigs and weddings. So she never really knows when she's available. And I have, so from Saturday, June 10th and 11th, I got 4 hours both days, which I'm supposed to get 8. Saturday, the 24th and 25th, both days I got 0. Wednesday, the 5th and 8th, as well as Sunday, the 9th, I got 0, 0, 0. Wednesday, the 19th, 22nd, and 23rd, I got 0, 0, and 4 hours. And then I got 0 hours, 0 hours, and 0 hours for the 2nd, the 5th, and the 6th of August. I did get to make up one missed day, and I went 25 days without seeing him. And one thing that tends to keep happening is, unfortunately, Abel gets sick, and that's understandable. People get sick, but whenever he's sick, I don't get my visitation time with him. And I am a parent myself, so I should be able to take care of my son. Like, there's no reason that I shouldn't get my visitation time just because he's sick.
Well, the problem though is you have supervised visitation, and the supervisor has to be willing to put themselves in a situation of being around a sick child. So I don't put much weight there, but I guess my question is, when I look at the bench order, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I'm not inclined to make drastic changes when I don't have another party present and we know why they're not present, but I want to be very careful here that I'm not going to be making changes, but I am looking at the bench order, and it states that if the supervisor, Ms. Woodage, is not available, that Mr. Llewellyn, your mother, may serve as the supervisor. So
My stepfather wants nothing to do with me, so I'm not allowed to go there, and it puts
Okay.
conflict between my mom and stepfather, so she won't do the visits unless he's gone. So doesn't really work. I would like to ask, I've gone through so many hoops and I've done nothing wrong. Many people can attest to it. I went through reconnecting families. There's notes that not a single bad note was written as far as I know. That's what they told me. I would like to request unsupervised visitation. I think it's time to let that happen because I'm not getting any hours like I'm supposed to.
Well, again, you just heard me. I'm not going to be making that kind of ruling without the other party present. You haven't noted that issue for the docket. If you would like to file a motion with documentation to prove to the court in support of your position that you should be granted unsupervised visitation, please do so. That's what this docket is for. But you can't show up to a docket and make an oral motion without any evidence or notice to the other side and ask for that type of change. So you would need to file a motion with the court with documents. Okay. Mr. Lawrence, any further input from you on these issues? Otherwise, I think I'll probably set us out to October 11th at 9 a.m. For the next review, since that'll be after her release.
I have no further comments for today, Your Honor.
Okay. So that's what I'm going to do. So visitation is as remains in the June 8, 2023 order. We will set this matter on for review to October 11th at 9 a.m. Mr. Llewellyn, if you have a motion regarding visitation that you would like this court to consider, you may file it at any time.
Okay, Your Honor, so if I'm unable to get my hours like has been happening, is that just I'm stuck with that?
Well, all I can go off is the last judicial officer who held any sort of hearing on visitation had a backup option, which was your mother. And so if both Ms. Woodage as the supervisor and your mother are unavailable, then I don't have any other resources I can offer you unless you file a motion requesting a change to that bench order.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. You're free to log off. And then let's take, I believe I see Mr. Lawrence here as well as Mr. Llewellyn. Let's take number 3 on our docket. 18-300-618-08. And Ms. Burkett, I assume she's, I don't know what her status is, but I don't see her here.
Your Honor, I can inform the court on that.
Okay.
I got an email last week from her mother, Sandy Burkett, and she indicated that Ms. Burkett's release date from jail will be on October 23rd. And Ms. Burkett is asking that this matter be set over until the second week of November.
Okay. Let's see. I'll come to you just a second, and Mr. Llewellyn. I'm just looking to see what would be our closest date to the 23rd. Was there any indication, Mr. Lawrence, why she was requesting that date versus kind of first available after release?
There was some mention about her wanting to file a motion, but I don't know what that motion is.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Llewellyn, let me hear from you. I know when you've been here in the past, we've talked about you filing your own motion regarding amending visitation. I haven't seen that come through. Let me know your position and what you're asking of the court.
So that was my fault. I tried to turn it in on Monday, but I realized that there has to be 3 days. I contacted the court, and that was my bad. So I'm still working on that. I got to get it turned in for next court date, I guess. I dropped the ball on that one, but I'm asking still for unsupervised visits, and if overnight stays are possible, that'd be really cool. We talked about it once in the past, like 4 or 5 court dates ago. I don't believe it was you though. I think it was a male. So yeah, I guess I'm just still asking for the same thing, and I dropped the ball, so I need to turn in the papers, and November, whenever that is, we'll talk about it again.
Okay. Well, here is my thought. My computer will work with me here. There we go. So the last order we have on visitation is from June 8. And I know, so Mr. Llewellyn, why don't you tell me just a little bit today about, I know your prior concerns were regarding the supervisor being unavailable and that sort of thing. How has visitation been going since we were last in court August 23rd?
So Abel and I, on average, typically go a month without seeing each other. And when we do get to see each other, it's 4 hours, typically on a Sunday. We actually went 90 hours without visitation at one point, and we've gone a month and a half without visitation, getting 4 hours. Typically, it's about a month getting 4 hours, but whenever the supervisor is available, Abel is conveniently sick. It's come up a lot during my court date, or I mean, during my visitation times that he's sick. And I really hope that's not the case, because I don't want my little guy to be sick. But other times she's just not available. She does bartending gigs, and she just doesn't seem to care about this that much. She bit off more than she could chew. She thought it was going to be like 10 hours a month. And she goes on like camping trips and dragon boat races and that kind of thing, and just says, sorry, not available. And then when we try to do a makeup time on my off weekend, Abel is out of town, even though we plan it like midweek or try to do the start of the week. It's just, it seems as though they don't want me to see him. And I get that, but I don't think it's right. And he doesn't get to see his mother, hasn't in a while, and rarely gets to see me. And as a 6-year-old, that's just, I mean, anyone can testify to the fact that that's difficult for a 6-year-old. And my mom sent an email to Mr. Lawrence, and she said that when Abel comes over, they told him that Tess is away on work and that she doesn't have access to a phone. But my mom stated in the email to Keith that when he comes over, he talks about jail, and we don't really know why that would be, but maybe he overheard a conversation or something. This is just from her email. I didn't know anything about it until I read the email. And as well as she speaks with Abel's teacher, because my mother herself is a first grade teacher, and she's friends with Abel's teacher. And his teacher said he clearly needs a parent in his life. He's just been different ever since Tess has been gone, and the fact that we rarely see each other doesn't help that case.
Mm-hmm. And the supervisor is still Ms. Woodage, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence, I guess I'm just kind of brainstorming. I will set a new review date. I'm not sure I want to go all the way out to the second week of November, but I will set a new review date. But is there any kind of just brainstorming here, any other way to have a supervisor available for visitation so that we can kind of stay more on track?
May I mention
Especially
something?
since I know, child is not seeing mother. So I think it's even more vital right now that the child's getting supervised visits with father until we can readdress this.
Your Honor, Ms. O'Flynn, Shane's mother, was supervising the visits. When Shane relapsed, there was apparently an argument between Ms. O'Flynn and her husband. And to my knowledge, Mr. O'Flynn doesn't want her to supervise the visits anymore. Ms. Burkett's mother, Sandy Burkett, has been more than willing to provide care for Abel, but I'm not sure that she's willing to supervise visits. And so that's why we had to go to a third party. And Ms. Woodage appeared to be somebody who could do this. And then she apparently really doesn't want to do it. So we're really kind of caught. The history on this is Shane has had a lot of history of mental health episodes. And some of those were quite severe, and it scared all the parties in this matter. He provided a summary of his medication dosages, and it appears that he's on his current medication still. He's not had any episodes in what, close to a year, I think.
It's been 2 years now.
And so we've been kind of tiptoeing around this whole thing. And so at some point, in my mind anyway, I'm thinking that he has demonstrated that he could have some unsupervised visits, but I hate to advocate for that with Ms. Burkett not available. And we have explored many alternatives, and right now I don't know of any third party that could come forward and do this.
Okay. Why don't we do this? I think that's, I think that's as honest as we can be, is that Mr. Llewellyn, I think, as Mr. Lawrence said, I think your track record recently, and especially in the last 12 months, you showing up to court, you continually advocating for your child, advocating for yourself, doing the best you can with the obstacles that are in front of you regarding supervisors and their schedules, I think all bodes in your favor. But I think it is true that, we would want, well, first of all, I guess what I'm going to request from you, I know you said you're working on your motion. I assume that motion is for some level of unsupervised visits. And if that's the case, I would just ask that your motion include documents that support your request and give the court a basis for granting unsupervised visits, such as your track record with mental health treatment, and things like that I think would be really helpful if you get that to the court and to Mr. Lawrence. I think what I'd like to do is set this not on the 1st, so she'll get out on October 23rd. So our next court date would be 2 days later, which isn't quite enough time. Are you both available November 1st? That would be the following weeks.
I can be available whenever, Your Honor.
I'm available, Your Honor.
Okay, let's do November 1 at 9 a.m. And so, Mr. Llewellyn, if you do file your motion, I'm just going to kind of put in my notes here. I presume that you will file your motion this week in all likelihood. Make sure that you serve that on Ms. Burkett. And then my plan is to address your motion for unsupervised visits on November 1st.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I say a few things?
Please do.
So I have been stable for 2 years now, and Keith had brought up that I had relapsed and I was from THC, and I no longer smoke. I can't smoke. I have zero desire to. I've gotten to the point. I'm sorry?
Sorry, I thought maybe you were asking questions about what we're doing today. If this all goes to your request for unsupervised visits, I would just go ahead and have you write those statements down and relay it to me on November 1st when Ms. Burkett is also present, so we can actually have a hearing on that issue. Because right now, without both parties present, I don't want to take too much, I don't want to go too far down the road of testimony.
Right, I understand. I just had a few quick things to say. It wasn't like very in-depth, but there was a few
Okay.
highlighted things. So been stable for 2 years, and I'm taking double the dose of what the therapeutic dose is for my medication. And we've exhausted the ideas of who we can go through supervisor wise. She doesn't want my grandpa because she thinks that if something happens mental health again, that he'll take my side. My mom is no longer available. Marie won't. I can't find anyone else who would. And I'm also thinking that it would be beneficial that Mr. Lawrence come and sit in on a visitation of mine. It's been about 3 or 4 years since he's seen Abel and I, and the last time that he saw us together was the first time Abel had seen me in about a year. So he was very awkward seeing his father again after not seeing him for a while. And I think that it'd be a good to revisit the situation with Keith Lawrence available, or Mr. Lawrence. And yeah, just things are going really well between Abel and I think him seeing that would be beneficial to the case.
I appreciate that input. Why don't you reach out directly to Mr. Lawrence? The two of you can figure out that plan of action. And if that's something Mr. Lawrence feels is appropriate, I'll leave that to the two of you.
Your Honor.
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, absolutely no disrespect, but I've sent a handful of emails and tried contacting Mr. Lawrence over the past month or two. And in the past, I've called his home phone and his cell phone, and they were provided to me. And I've sent follow-up emails and have not received them, and I've not gotten no calls back. So I've been trying to be in contact with Mr. Lawrence, but it's been a difficult thing. And I mean, no disrespect, but that's just how it's been.
Mr. Lawrence, what's the best way to contact you?
It's email, Your Honor.
Okay.
And he needs to state exactly what he wants. The concern that I had before was he was constantly wanting to talk about the visits and the problems he was having, and those were issues that needed to be addressed in court. And I could not solve those for him because I don't have that authority, but I will respond to him.
Okay. I think that all makes sense to me, Mr. Llewellyn. Thank you for bringing it up. I think Mr. Lawrence's response also makes sense. There are some things, Mr. Llewellyn, that just need to come to me. So I'm glad to hear that you're working on the motion because you and I have talked about this visitation issue a few times. So please send, again, file with the court, your request, documentation that supports your request, give that to Mr. Lawrence, and then reach out to him, as you just heard him say, via email. He will get back to you and the two of you can chat further. And then we'll have you back on November 1 to address visitation.
That sounds great, Your Honor. Thank
Okay.
you very much. And thank you, Mr. Lawrence. I appreciate you as well.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Llewellyn, you're free to log out. And I think, Mr. Lawrence, that's your only case on today's docket. First, unless I'm missing it, the first GAL matter, I have number 4 and 5 on my docket. That's Tessana Burkett and Shane Llewellyn with GAL Keith Lawrence.
Hello, Your Honor.
Hello, good morning.
Oh, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Llewellyn, and good morning, Mr. Lawrence.
Morning.
So what I have us on for, I have us on for a review hearing, but I also have us on for an adequate cause motion that Mr. Llewellyn has filed since our last appearance. And I'm just going to open up our digital file here. This is 18-300-61808. And what I have is the Mr. Llewellyn's proposal or motion for adequate cause and a proposed new parenting plan. I did receive, Ms. Burkett, your response. So thank you for getting that in.
I also see that it was served on Mr. Llewellyn, October 27th. Mr. Llewellyn, have you received the response to your motion?
I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you need any additional time to respond or review that response?
I didn't know that I needed to respond. I thought that was just her response and then we had our court date. Was I in need of doing so?
Well, I'm asking you if
Oh.
it was just served on you just a couple days ago. So I'm asking if you're wanting any additional time to review or respond to the objection to your motion.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. And Mr. Lawrence, have you received the motions, the proposed parenting plan, and Ms. Burkett's response?
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
Okay. So let's, we will take up the adequate cause hearing then. But first, I think I'll just ask for Mr. Lawrence's input on what's happened since our prior hearing to help kind of guide how I handle this case.
Your Honor, Shane has always tried to increase the amount of visitation that he has with his son, Abel. Tessana just recently got out of jail for her issue where she caused a car crash where she injured a couple of people while under the influence of alcohol and possibly marijuana. I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning of this and put it into some perspective. Tessana has always been fearful of Shane relapsing, and Shane does have a history of relapsing up until about 2 years ago. His medication wasn't properly dosed, and the medication that he had made him feel lethargic. He was also utilizing marijuana at the time. And then about 2 years ago, when he went to Core Health, they got him on a new medication, which has made him feel very good. And he's more than willing to take that. And he's been providing the court with copies of his dosing levels, and he is in compliance with the treatment that is being provided to him. And there's been no relapses over the last couple of years. What Tessana, I understand her concerns, but what she forgets is her behavior in all of this. And it was just a miracle that Abel was not with her during the time that she had her car crash. So she's not a totally safe parent either. And so where we're at in this situation is when Shane undergoes a manic phase due to his bipolar disorder, he does not recognize when he is starting to go into it. However, those around him notice it quite distinctly. It doesn't just happen like a flip of a switch. It takes a little time for it to develop. Also, I have some concerns that Shane, being a person with a disability and who has followed the court's orders over the last couple of years and has, for all intents and purposes, been stable, that I'm concerned that continuing to put him through unnecessary hoops may be a violation of his civil rights. And I have reached out to an Americans with Disabilities coordinator through the Federal Department of Justice, and I'm going to be speaking with her this afternoon. I want to see whether we're skirting with any issues of civil rights violations by continuing to try to throw roadblocks in front of Shane's visits.
Mhm.
At this point, what I would recommend to the court is the supervised visits, first of all, were through reconnecting families, and that became a financial hardship for Shane. Then he had Ms. Woodage providing the supervision, and she did not want to supervise them to the level that Shane needed. And so that fell apart.
Mhm.
At this stage of the game, what I'm recommending to the court is to consider every other weekend day visits only, from like 10 to 4 or 10 to 6. When Shane picks up or somebody delivers able, they can assess, because everybody in the family knows Shane, whether or not he is off balance. And if that is the case, then he needs to be willing to then go seek his medical provider out and to get his medication adjusted. But if he is fine, then he should be able to have a day visit only for both Saturday and Sunday over a period of time. And I don't know how long that might be, three months or so, before we consider whether overnight visits should be allowed. But I think Shane should have to provide his medication compliance to tests on a regular basis. I don't know if that's quarterly or monthly or whatever, but Tess also needs to be able to provide to Shane her treatment compliance for her substance abuse issues. Because at this point, her situation is more acute than Shane's at this point. And so that would be my input, Your Honor.
I very much appreciate that. So first, what I'm going to do, Mr. Llewellyn, as it pertains to your motion for adequate cause to change a parenting plan, I just first want to hear from you if there's anything you want to say in addition to your motion or based on what Mr. Lawrence has said to the court today.
So yes, I would like to say that the times that I had been manic was when I had smoked weed. I would go a long time without smoking, and I'd think, oh, I'm fine. And then I'd smoke again, and it would just, right then and there, it set me off. And I no longer have any desire to smoke. And I am taking double the amount of medication that I'm supposed to. My brain is fully saturated. I asked to raise even higher. And my med prescriber said that that's for people with epilepsy. So I'm kind of a statistic for her with the amount of medication that I take compared to 30 or 40 of her other clients. And like I say, I'm not going to smoke anymore. And that was my onsets for episodes pretty much every single time.
Okay. How often are you seeing your provider for medication management?
So I was seeing her once a month, but she had said that since I'm doing so well and in compliance fully and my UAs are good and I'm on time to all of my visits, she said that we can go to every 3 months, but if it puts Tessana's mind at ease, I am willing to go back to monthly. That doesn't bother me. As well as the other thing I wanted to add is Keith had said the every other weekend, no overnight stays. That way, during the pickups and drop off, people can see if I'm mentally stable. Um, Due to the fact that I no longer smoke weed, I was able to get into an Oxford house. I have my own room here, and there are many people who know me and have known me for about a half a year now, and they are willing to allow my son to stay in my room with me. I have a giant king size bed. Again, it's a room of my own. They all know me, they monitor me, and obviously I'm in an Oxford house, so I can't use. I'd be kicked out, and like I say, I have zero desire to use. So I see personally no reason to not get overnight stays, but obviously that's what we're talking about here.
Okay. And how often are you doing the UAs?
That's what, it was once a month, but my med prescriber switched it to once every 3 months.
Oh,
But
so
I'm,
so your medication management and the UAs are every 3 months now?
yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
I can switch back to once a month if that's preferred.
okay. And then the Oxford House, I have had this come up in some other cases, and some of them have been open to having children there, some aren't. You're saying that your Oxford House does allow for that, but there wouldn't be a separate bed or bedroom for child, is that right?
Correct. They don't allow like full time, which obviously that's not what I'm getting, but
Yeah.
every other weekend they are fine with. And like I say, I do have a king size bed and it's a room of my own. It's a very nice room. It's downstairs, secluded from everyone else. And there's actually two giant yards. There's one giant yard up top and there's one giant yard down below. And it's in a safe part, tucked away from like really even the street. And there's no neighborhoods around for any kind of, you know, bad activity to go on around him.
Okay.
So I'm in a good
Then-
place in life and where I'm currently staying.
And then you're working during the week, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor. My schedule just switched to 10 to 6:30. I was 11 to 7:30, but seeing as how I'm outside year round doing door sales, they switched the hours because of light time. We're
Okay.
losing out on light time.
And you have the weekend days off of work, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence, any additional input? And then Tassana, I'll come to you, based on the living situation in the Oxford House.
I was not aware that Mr. Llewellyn was in an Oxford House. I would have concerns about overnight visits there, but as far as day visits, I think it's fine.
Yeah. And I tend to agree, that I wouldn't at this point be comfortable with overnights with the Oxford House living situation. But I do believe, Mr. Llewellyn, that the fact that you are there gives me some additional security ideas that there are folks who see you every day. So that if there was an episode that was perhaps coming up, I think you have some additional kind of safety in place for that. So I think that is good. Ms. Burkett, based
Your
on,
Honor, may I say something super quickly?
sure, go ahead.
So there is one other person that has their child here on occasion, and they do stay overnight. And I get that's probably a different situation than ours, but everyone in this house has been here for 6+ months. And like I say, I don't see how it's an unsafe environment because if anyone does use again, they get kicked out. So they're very safe people. I've known them for a long time. I'm monitored well. I agree.
I understand. Ms. Burkett, what do you want the court to know in addition to what you have filed as your objection?
I also was not aware of the Oxford House situation. I don't know much about Oxford homes, so I'll have to look into that a little bit. As far as my sobriety, I have been sober for over 2 years from both alcohol and marijuana, and I also get tested for that regularly, at least a few times a month. So that was a one-time thing. Totally unfortunate and completely my fault, but was a one-time thing. And Abel is very happy here. He does love seeing his father. I do hope that they can continue that connection. It does just worry me about the relapsing. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And then how often are you doing any sort of substance abuse check-ins, appointments, UAs, that sort of thing?
So I check in with my DOC officer. I call her every day, but we meet up in person once a week currently. I get tested once a week as well. And I also see a counselor. It's not to do with drugs or alcohol, but I see my counselor twice a month, just for regular mental health check-ins.
Have
Yeah,
you
I also a drug and alcohol evaluation scheduled for Monday. And I had a hair follicle test done as well that came back clean, so. And I
And
can
then-
file as well.
Okay, sorry to cut you off. Did the once a week testing you do, is that a UA or is that hair follicle?
It's a mouth swab that she does.
Okay. And what is that test for?
It tests for pretty much everything, THC, methamphetamines, cocaine, any kind of drug that I've ever heard of, pretty much.
And is there any specific testing for alcohol that you're doing?
That was not on the list, no.
Okay. The incident that you had that led to your sentence, was that alcohol related or other substance related?
Alcohol and marijuana.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Lawrence, any input from you based on what you've heard from both parties?
I'm pleased to hear that Tasana has been clean as long as she has. I think both of these folks really love their son and want the best for him. And right now is a kind of a turbulent time. Shane appears to be have found the combination to keep him stable. And Tasana, if she follows through with her program, should be stable as well. And I would hope that all of this would lead to a wonderful relationship between Abel and both parents. But at some point, we can't be stuck in the past and need to move forward on this.
Yeah. I agree. Here's what I'm going to do today. I am, first of all, Mr. Llewellyn, going to grant your motion for adequate cause. I think that there are enough findings and changes since your parenting plan was put into place, frankly, with both of you, that it does warrant another look by this court for what your parenting plan should look like. I am not going to rule on a formal parenting plan today, but I am going to file a bench order that changes visitation and certain requirements right now. And certainly, Mr. Lawrence, if your discussions with folks changes anything when we come back for our next review date, I'd certainly like to hear it. But what I'm proposing at this time in my bench order, my ruling will be that we are going to take off the requirement for supervised visitation. Visitation with Abel will go unsupervised. It will be every other weekend. Mr. Llewellyn, if just until we do our next review date and see how this is going, I'm going to keep it daytime visits, and then we can revisit overnights. I do have some concern about the lack of a separate bed. I'd want to know more from Oxford House about that accommodation. But would you prefer 10 to 4 or 10 to 6?
10 to 6, Your Honor. That's what we've had. Well,
Okay.
what I was supposed to have been getting.
Okay. So what I'll order is unsupervised visits every other weekend, Abel with you, 10 to 6, Saturday and Sunday. I would like to have you do, and since you're willing and have offered it, I would like to go to once a month UAs/medication management and have that submitted to Mr. Lawrence and Ms. Burkett, just so we can monitor. I think that'll also be helpful for you when we come to re-review for overnights, if you're willing to do that. And it sounds like you are.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And then I do believe the other reason I'm granting the adequate cause motion is a change in circumstances with you, Ms. Burkett. I know it was very fortunate that your parents were around to help while you dealt with your legal issues. I do believe that the court, in setting the new parenting plan, does need to at least initially monitor your substance treatment. So I am going to have you, you said you have a drug and alcohol evaluation scheduled for next week?
Ma'am.
Okay, I am gonna make that a condition of this court's obligations. And when you get that done, please submit a copy of that to the GAL so that we can see completion of that. I'm gonna indicate that another obligation will be that you follow whatever treatment recommendations the substance abuse counselor recommends for you. And then I would like you to file your either, I'll put in here either the mouth swab that you're already doing, but my bigger concern is alcohol, since that seemed to be the factor in your legal issues. So if your DOC officer wants to add, UAs to that, or if you want to get those on your own, I'll also put a requirement of at least, much like Mr. Llewellyn, once a month, alcohol or hair follicle testing, where my primary concern is checking for THC and alcohol.
Your Honor, if I may interject.
Please do.
I was the former director of Longview Work Release, and I was a parole officer back in the day.
Okay.
The DOC offices, I believe, have a portable breathalyzer that would give alcohol readings, and it's possible when she goes in and sees her officer once a week that they might be able to just have her blow into the tube and get it right there.
Okay. So I'll put in my bench order some leeway because I understand, these things all cost money and it all starts to add up. So this does seem like a good compromise that if you want to check with your DOC officer and they can add an alcohol testing component to the mouth swab, I'm happy to accept that. And I'm not going to require weekly. I'm just going to require that once a month, just like I'm doing with Mr. Llewellyn.
Okay.
Okay. So anything else, and then we'll set a 3-month review date to see how all of this is going. Anything else the parties want me to consider or review before signing a bench order and the order granting adequate cause?
I'd like to ask something, Your Honor. If I didn't catch on to this, I apologize. But if I could get UAs from Tessana regularly as well, information about them.
Yes.
And then also, I'm willing to do literally anything and everything to get more time with him and the overnight stays. So if the king size bed is a problem, I will get rid of the king size bed and sleep on a queen size bed. I mean, a twin size bed and get him a twin size bed. So we have separate bedding.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to do anything required.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's the only reason that I'm not granting overnights right now. I just think given the history here, and I agree 100% with Mr. Lawrence, we can't dwell in the past, but I do have to take the past into account. I think some of the allegations when you do go into a bipolar episode were quite concerning for safety. And so, I want to be realistic about that and do what's in the best interest of the child. But I certainly understand you've put in your time. You're 2 years without an episode. That's highly commendable. Keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you will get there. So.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I have one last issue.
Yes.
Shane has asked me to sit in on a visit with him and Abel. And we're going into yet another review hearing, and I'm probably going to be, having interviews and reading documents from both parties. I'm asking the court to consider giving me more funds for this matter.
Yes, I do believe, given the unique circumstances in this case, I will grant our typical order would be an additional 10 hours on this case with the normal hourly billing. Does that feel sufficient to you?
Right now, I believe for county pay, it's $14.85 at $67.50 an hour or something like that.
Correct. Does that seem like it'll be enough?
That will be sufficient, Your Honor.
Okay. Would you be able just to submit an order to me granting that additional time and money, and I will happily get that signed for you? I think this case warrants that additional time and attention.
Yes, I will.
Okay, I will get that signed when it comes to me. Anything else from the parties?
I did have one thing. So
Yes.
there is a order in place in this case, which if possible, I would like to continue having most of the time. However, when Shane does have Able, I think it's important for him to be able to communicate with me during that time. Needs to me to come pick him up, or if he needs me for any reason, I want Shane to know that during the time that he has Able, it's perfectly okay for him to contact me about our son, if that's possible.
Okay, and I think that and you're talking about the restraining order that's been put into place.
Yes.
I'm just looking to see. You don't have a separate standalone civil protection order, are you? Is that correct? Is it just the one that was done under the family law case?
I believe so. Yeah.
Is what I would be inclined to do if the parties are in agreement. I'm just going all the way back to look for that. Is I would put in my bench order that I would allow electronic communication between the two parties. It would not be a violation of the restraining order. And I'm talking about text messaging mostly. The reason I would say that is the court can review it, Ms. Burkett, if you felt like the communication was inappropriate or harassing in any way. So rather than phone calls where Ms. Burkett could say, Shane said this to me and I thought it was harassing and I have no way to monitor that. That if during the visitation when Able is with Shane, Shane would be allowed to text message electronically with you anything about child visitation, safety, or welfare.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, would that work for you, Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes, the only thing I am wondering is, I understand that during my visits we can text, but for the pickups and drop-offs, if that's something involved in the texts, seeing as how it's only during the visits, how does that go? How does that work for like interaction for pickup and drop-off if that's what we talk about during the text messages?
I'm not quite sure I follow your question. What I'm saying is if you are, how do you guys already coordinate? Do you have a third party that communicates with you about when they're coming?
Yes, Your Honor.
I would continue that because what I'm focused on is when Able is with you, if there's a question you have about, you know, what he likes or doesn't like, and you want to ask her, or something, or she wants to check in, or Able saying he wants to talk to his mom, and so you're letting her know he wants to talk to her. Those are the types of things I would allow during the visits. So I think just keep doing what you're doing with regard to third-party drop-offs. And again, we will revisit all of this in 3 months.
Yes, Your Honor. And I will keep it very minimal and only about Able.
That's great. Yeah, I'm going to put in text messaging regarding visitation, circumstances, welfare, and safety of Able. Obviously, if there's an emergency, use your best judgment. I mean, if he's being rushed to the ER, do what you need to do to let the other parent know. But for just kind of the basic 10 to 6 things, use text messaging.
Yes, Your Honor. And does that continue on the same schedule that it's been on? Or would that start this coming weekend or?
Let's talk about that. When's the last time you had Able or saw Able?
I got to see him on Saturday for, what was it? 6 hours,
Okay,
10 to 4, I was able to see him.
okay.
But I would propose, I mean, it's entirely up to you guys and if Tess agrees, but since I had missed out on so much time with him, if we could switch it to this weekend and then every other weekend,
Okay.
that'd be nice because I lost a lot of time with him.
Ms. Burkett, would you be willing to start this every other week visitation this coming weekend? Would that work for you?
We actually had some plans going this weekend. He has a play date with his cousins that he really doesn't want to miss. if it would be okay to stay on the same schedule we've been on, just because we do make plans.
Let's start it. What would be that date? So the every other weeks would start next weekend, November 11th. Okay,
That sounds great, Your Honor.
and then let's set the review date. Let's see, February. I know our dockets,
9 a.m. on Wednesdays.
it is going to be 9 a.m. on Wednesday still. Okay. Perfect. So let's put you on Wednesday, February 7, 2024 at 9 a.m. Okay, anything else the parties need from me? Otherwise, I appreciate both of you being so willing to do the things you need to do to move this forward and give Abel the most stable parenting situation he can. So thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Your Honor.
I'd
All
like to
right.
thank everyone involved in the case. Thank you,
Yes,
guys.
thank you for your patience and work, Mr. Llewellyn. Mr. Lawrence, anything else from you?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I will get that bench order signed. Okay, you're free to log
Oh,
out.
Your
Thank
Honor,
you.
I
Oh.
just last thing that I just thought of right now.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, can I hear Tessana's how she feels about the whole king size bed thing? I know you said that's not a giant issue, but it did ring a bell in your mind, so I'm wondering how she feels about that.
Why don't I let you chat with Mr. Lawrence about that? That's something that he could talk to the parties about before we come back on our review hearing.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Lawrence, do